Hi, this is Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog, and I'm here with another Friday Reads. Very happy to be here today because I tried recording this yesterday and I was just still not feeling up to it. As I mentioned on last week's Friday Reads, I got COVID at the start of the year. My father-in-law is 96 and in a nursing home recovering from a broken hip. And they've had an outbreak there. So he's got it, I've got it. My son had it for about a week. What you're hearing in the news is true. The Omicron variant is unbelievably contagious. We were all wearing masks, although I spent like 90 minutes with him and was feeding him the day that he tested positive. And the residents at the nursing home, of course, don't wear masks. So anyway, that's how it started. I have an underlying immune disorder. So this is going to be a long, slow road to recovery for me. I'm just happy to be sitting up and wearing grown-up clothes instead of sweats. I actually have earrings in today, and they're little library cards. So just for this video. It's one of my better days. I did attempt a 15-minute walk on Tuesday, and so Wednesday I was just flat again. So it's slow. I am making progress, but it's slow. Because of my immune disorder, I got vaccinated, but I did not make very many antibodies. So it's probably why it's hit me so hard. Luckily, my son, this was the son that's healthy, that doesn't have the same immune disorder I have. So he was sick for about a week. And then he tested negative and was able to go back to work. So thankfully he is well. And my father-in-law is struggling, but I'm coming back little by little. Still a little froggy in my throat, so I hope you'll excuse that. And I'm here to talk about books, so let's get going. What I've been reading this week, I didn't actually want to read. This happens once in a while with a book group. They choose a book that I'm not all that interested in, but what usually happens is it turns out to be really good. And that's the case with this one. I am reading Bottle of Lies by Katherine Eban. So you can probably tell from the cover, it's about the generic drug industry. And the reason I wasn't interested in it, well, first of all, it's a very hefty nonfiction. I generally prefer fiction. And it's about generic drugs. And because of my medical problems, I rely on, I don't know, at least a dozen, probably a little more than that, generic drugs every day. And they help me function. So if there was something bad going on, I really didn't want to know. And I know that's terrible, a bad attitude, but, I was just like, oh, this is going to tell me there's something wrong with the medicines I'm taking. But as it turns out, I'm about halfway through. Unfortunately, I missed the book group discussion last night because I just wasn't up to even meeting on Zoom. But it's turning out to be a really good book. It's fascinating. It is horrifying. But it's also really well written, which surprised me. Some of these topics with nonfiction books, you think they're going to be really dry. The author has really made the story very vibrant, and it almost reads like a legal thriller in places. So at least the first half of the book, I don't know what we're going to get into next, but at least the first half of the book has been about one particular generic drug company in India. And I've already checked, they don't make any of my pills. I don't think they make any pills anymore based on what I'm reading now. But So this company was just completely corrupt from the ground up. Well, more from the top down. You know, the leaders of the company were focused on the huge market for generic drugs, the huge economic opportunities. And so, you know, they worked hard to get into all the worldwide markets, including the US. And I think what's been most stunning to me so far, well, first, that an entire corporation could be this corrupt and fraudulent. You know, that all of the top management knew that they were making up their data and that these drugs could potentially kill people. And, you know, they didn't seem to care. That stunned me. And also that the FDA didn't pick it up. And that's a part of what this book is about, that the FDA trying to oversee all of these global manufacturers of generic drugs, it's overloaded the agency, and they can't keep up. So that's part of the story too with the FDA. Coincidentally, I used to work sort of in this field, not in pharmaceuticals specifically, but my expertise was in quality management systems, which the FDA relies very heavily on. The FDA has a very specific kind of quality management system that they call good manufacturing practices that each pharmaceutical company has to meet. So I know a lot about the systems themselves, not necessarily about the pharmaceutical industry, but about how these quality systems are supposed to work and look. And so that's been interesting too. So I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. It's very interesting, and it's actually so far been a pretty quick read. That's Bottle of Lies by Catherine Eban. On audio, I am currently listening to Mercy Street by Jennifer Haig, and I'm loving it so far. Jennifer Haig is one of my favorite authors, and I'm guessing a lot of you have never heard of her. I don't know how well known she is. I sort of stumbled onto her by mistake over a decade ago. One of my neighbors lent me a book of hers, Baker Towers, and I read it and absolutely loved it. And then my mom lent me another book of hers called Mrs. Kimball, which I also loved. And I ended up rereading Baker Towers. That first time I read it, I was sick. I think it was also about this time of year. I probably had bronchitis or something. It's weird how you remember sometimes the exact circumstances when you read a book. And so later I wondered, you know, did I just love it so much because it was a good story that really gripped me at a time when I needed, you know, that kind of distraction? But then I read it again a few years later for one of my book groups and still loved it just as much. I'm trying to think of her other books. I've read Faith by Jennifer Haig. There's one other that I'm missing. But anyway, I think it's hard to explain what makes her books so special, because they're about ordinary people. They're about ordinary people living ordinary lives. But she just has this way of bringing those lives to life on the page. Her characters just feel so real. The situations they're in and the settings, you know, it just all comes to life on the page. So when I saw, I get most of my audios from publishers, and when I saw that Jennifer Haig's name pop up in upcoming releases from one of the publishers, I was so excited, because it's been several years since she's written a new book, and longer than that since I've read one of her books. So I'm not that far in yet, but so far Mercy Street centers around a women's clinic in Boston. Now this clinic offers all kinds of medical services to women and sometimes to men too. They treat sexually transmitted diseases, so they see some men for that. But a lot of it does have to do with pregnancy, with abortion, with, prenatal care, mostly helping women that have no other place to go. So far, the book is mostly about a woman who works there. And it goes back and fills in her background, growing up in rural Maine in a very poor family with just her mother and she in a trailer. And then her mother started taking in foster kids. So she grew up in this really kind of strange way, surrounded by foster kids that, as the older child, she mostly took care of. And now she's in Boston. She's, I think, in her 40s during this book, and she's working for this clinic. So it's taking her background and folding that into the story. Again, it's hard to describe what makes Jennifer Haig's writing so special, but it's just her writing brings these characters to life, and they're living sort of ordinary lives, but it's immensely fascinating. It's the way she writes, I think. So really enjoying Mercy Street by Jennifer Haig so far. And I highly recommend you check out some of Jennifer Haig's backlist. Baker Towers, I think, is my favorite so far. And my voice is kind of giving out, so I think that'll wrap it up for this week. Very happy to be here with you on a Friday talking about books. I am really missing my book conversations while I've been sick, so please let me know down below what you're reading this weekend. I'd love to chat about it.